Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the LinkedIn Live with Dream Data. I can hear an echo. Can you hear an echo too, Kristen?
No, sounds great on mine.
Okay, let's do this then. All right, I'm really excited, guys. So, Krysten Conner, sales strategist at UserGems, advisor, coach, and all stuff sales and multi-threading today as well. Kristen, I'm very happy to meet you here. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. So happy to be here.
Amazing. So, Kristen, if you were to give a quick intro to yourself to the audience, can you help me
Yeah,
out with that?
yeah, of course. So I started my journey in tech sales after working as a middle school history teacher and running a family business. So of course the natural pivot was into tech. And but after I got into tech, I've been an enterprise AE at multi-billion-dollar companies like Tableau and Outreach and Salesforce, and still wanting to scratch the itch of teaching and helping others. So now I coach AEs on their journey to being top performers, and I work with UserGems as a sales strategist. So that's me in a nutshell.
Fantastic. And before we started the show, it's like, yes. Tell everybody that I'm a multi-threading champion and professional because I made all the mistakes in the books. Great.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about that. And everybody who is in the audience, feel free to ask any questions that you would like to ask Kristen. This is going to be an amazing conversation because we're talking about both sales and marketing for multi-threading. This is the topic that I'm very passionate about. I'm in sales, and we're really close with marketing and Dream Data, how we collaborate, how we work together. That's why the topic is so close to my heart. So help me out understanding, Kristen, in your world, in sales for enterprises, what is proper multi-threading and where do people get it wrong?
Yeah, well, I guess sometimes it's easiest to define something by what it's not. Multi-threading is not mass emailing everybody that is involved with the deal. Because my dad has these funny little quip sayings, and so I think I've adopted that as well. And my little tag to remember that is, if it's nobody's baby, it's an orphan. So if you email 12 people, everyone is going to look at that and be like, oh, 12 people are on this. Someone else is going to take care of this. And so they just delete it or archive it and just move on because to the 50 or 200 other emails. And the other reason that doesn't work is that when we multi-thread, and anytime we're in sales, we have to think about what's in it for me, meaning what's in it for the other person, right? And so when we multi-thread, we should be doing it at 3 different levels, like an executive level, a manager level, and an end user level. And what they care about is different. And if we're emailing them all on the same thread, we can't address what each person is going to care about from our product or from our offering. So those are definitely ways that I got it wrong very early and often in my early career.
So exciting. And so when selling to large enterprises and you're saying you don't want to multi-thread by just selling and sending the one thread to everybody, when do you start involving all the people?
Yeah, that's a good, really smart question. If we are already at power, or if we already have a champion, we want to, part of a test of how strong this champion is who will they introduce us to? How will they guide us around the organization? Like who's who in the zoo? What are the politics? Who should we avoid? Who's for us? Those kinds of things. So if we have a champion that's very strong, they can help guide us as to when to bring people in. I find most of the time, I'll just make it personal to me, most of the time in my career, first meetings are not with champions and they are not with power. Many times first meetings are with managers or directors or end users. They're easier to get meetings with. SDRs love that. Full cycle AEs love that. It's much easier to get a meeting with a manager or director. It's not bad. You get a lot of information that way. And we should not assume, though, really no matter who the first meeting is with, that just because they are our first contact, that means that they're automatically going to be a champion. Mm-hmm. A first contact makes them a first contact. They might be doing due diligence. They might already have a solution they love, and they're just trying to look at others so that they can figure out a good way to block, what we have. So like we can't assume that a first meeting is a champion. And so multi-threading before the first meeting, reaching out to, I have a 3x3x3 method, reaching out to 3 executives before that first meeting, saying, hey, we have this meeting with Laura in your org. Executives don't always join every meeting related to this problem I solved. Wanted to, let you know this was the topic. Happy to send along an invite, and no worries if you can't attend. I will keep you posted, because that way the executive level in that group knows, and then we haven't set up that first contact to be a blocker or a single point of failure.
Yeah. And do you expect a response when
No,
you send out those informations?
no, no. And I would say like 1 to 10% of the time you might get a response, but the response is not the point. Part of in sales, part of being great at sales, including what's in it for me, is also friction reduction, making things easier for the buyer. So when we send those executives those calendar invites, the point is not that they accept. If they do, great. But if not, they have it on their calendar. So they know that they can go back and ask that team that they've asked to be kind of the scouting party, how did this go? Right? And when we follow up with them that same day saying, hey, we had this meeting, here are the 3 bullet points of what we covered, that's a way for them to register that Krysten did what she said she was going to do. They had the meeting. She sent me the readout. Now, hopefully somebody else from their team also told them what happened, but I'm not depending on another person to say what I felt like the impact of the meeting was, right? And also I'm making it easy for that executive. They don't have to go hunt down their team. I've already told them what happened during the meeting.
Yeah. And is there a threshold for the sizes of the deals that you would do it or not do it, that type of multi-threading?
Yeah, I think you have to use common sense when it comes to the type of thing that you sell and the type of organizations you sell to. So one of my coaching clients, he was like, our end users are patients and hospitals. So you're not multi-threading those end users, right? I have another client who they work with small organizations, and he's like, we deal with the CEO and maybe one other person, but he's like, it would slow down our deals to bring in 12 people. So you have to use common sense and understanding like what you sell, how long your sales cycle is, how big the organizations are that you sell to. Because I mean, you can do a complex sale to a company that has 50 employees, and you can do a complex sale to a company that has 50,000 employees. Sometimes they take just as long, unfortunately. So you just have to use common sense as to like what makes sense to bring.
Yeah. Is there anywhere where it can go wrong if you're trying to hit on the wrong people?
Yes, you can definitely go wrong if you bring in too many voices, right? Because then it can kind of spread, and then it can create, it's harder to make a decision with more people. But when you get to a point where if you're reaching out to like so many people that you can't really keep track of them, and you're just deciding, oh, well, I think I should reach out to this person and this person.
Yeah.
That's really an indication that we probably don't have a strong champion, because a strong champion is going to tell you, hey, I'm in sales, but if I need to buy this, I'm probably going to need marketing to buy in. I'm also going to need probably some IT budget. I'm going to need a project manager from IT. We're going to have to get sign off on that. Like, they're going to have an idea of who it's going to take on their end. And if we don't have somebody guiding us to who we should be talking with, and then smoothing the way for those introductions, we don't have a strong champion, and we don't have a strong deal.
Interesting. So Zach has a question while we're talking. So would you say that sending that exec follow-up would also prompt them to reach out to their team for their take in the event that they don't loop the exec in?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a value add. That should be a value add for the executive, right? Like, oh, that's right, my team did have this meeting today. So instead of them having to review their calendar and be like, what happened today? Be like, oh, that's right, Laura's team did have this meeting. I need to quickly see what she thought about it. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Let's pivot a bit into that collaboration between marketing and sales, because that's a very interesting one. So how how would you start that type of a collaboration? Where does marketing come in to multi-threading for sales or with?
Yeah. So before User Gems, I had never seen marketing partner so closely with sales on multi-threading. And I mean, at Tableau, at Salesforce, we had great, fantastic, marketing departments who partnered well with sales, but I had just, and maybe they were doing it behind the scenes, but I know Trinity our VP of marketing User Gems is a phenom. So how we have done it is, once we in sales we start a deal, part of the User Gem product is that it will go grab data and fill in the other probable stakeholders, right? So if I'm talking to Laura and you're VP of sales, we know at User Gems we also need VP of marketing and probably an IT director. And so the product will go and fill in CRM. Okay, here are the people that we think are the typical stakeholders, and then, which you can do obviously without User Gems. An AE can go hunt down, here are the people that I think should be involved in the deal. But we get that into CRM, and then our marketing team grabs that and starts sending them ads on LinkedIn that talk about the problems that we solve for their role, right? So if they're on LinkedIn, like, we're going to follow them they're going to see us everywhere. And we will even have that comment in in Zoom meetings. So they're like, we see User Gems everywhere. That means it's working. Yeah, it's amazing that when you have that really tight collaboration with marketing, how far that can go and how much that can do because you're going to have some personas, especially probably IT, for a lot of us in tech, that may not have much awareness of your product, and marketing can really help with that.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. So I guess that is like very personalized and targeted ads on LinkedIn, not some generic stuff. So how do you agree? What is it that we should be sending to those specific stakeholders?
Yeah, I think, again, when you have a really strong marketing department, they've built out those personas, right? And they understand. We've looked at case studies, we've talked to customers, we've talked to our customer advisory board. We know what problems we solve for that persona, so we can speak specifically to that. And also, again, at User Gems, just part of the genius is the ads that they get along the buying journey are targeted to different things that the buyer cares about at different points in the buying journey. So if you look at buying journey, a lot of times, once people agree that first of all, we have to agree that there's a problem big enough to solve, right? So then marketing will send them ads about, talking about Gartner research that, execs make decisions within the first 30 days. And so, like, it starts to register like, oh, this is a bigger problem, or this is, a bigger problem we should think about solving. And then midway kind of through the buyer journey, people care more about features. What can this do? Is this the thing that solves our needs? And so then the ad would be about the features and how it helps that particular persona. And then towards the end of the buying cycle, people care about risk. And so those ads would be more targeted to things like social proof, right? Like, people like you do things like this. Hey, you're people in this space, your competitors, all these brands you recognize. So it's very specific. It's not just targeted to the persona, but it's also targeted to where they are and how long the deal's gone on.
That's fantastic. And how would you, as a salesperson, then approach multi-threading differently than if marketing does that piece of a job, which is great, then you don't have to blast emails to most of the people. How do you adhere to that in sales?
Yeah. So then so marketing is one to many, right? Like this, they're speaking to the general problem, but we in sales are hearing specific things in the Zoom meeting. We are, or the on-site meeting. We're hearing specific things from our champion, things like internal vocabulary, where maybe the slogan is 5 billion by 2025, right? Like, we're hearing that vocabulary. We are understanding the personal win, that the VP of sales wants to be CRO someday, and that marketing has to meet a certain, they have a pipeline number that they're 26% behind, right? Those are very specific things. And so then when we are specifically following up with them, whether that's an email, a voicemail, a video, however we're specifically and individually following up with them, we are referencing those specific things that they care about. Marketing is talking about the bigger problem they solve. We're talking about the problem we solve for them.
Nice. And would you ever split out inbound and outbound deals booked and worked on in terms of multi-threading for sales?
Um, I think I think it depends more on it's really all about, do you have a strong champion? And you can have a strong champion whether you're going outbound or whether it's coming inbound. It seems more likely if it's inbound, right? Because they've come to us.
Yeah.
But again, we don't yet know the reason they've come to us. We'll have to figure that out. I'll give you an example. There was a VP of sales that I outbounded whenever I was at User Gems, and I had followed her career actually. And so I sent her a very personalized first email and cold outbound her. She and I had never spoken, but I knew who she was and knew what she'd accomplished at some other places. And I sent her like 2 emails, and she responded and she said, hey, actually, yes, we are looking for something like this. Let me hand you off to my RevOps person who is going to run this evaluation. And actually, I never met with her. She never joined a meeting. I kept her in the loop throughout the process. But she was a very strong champion, even though we never met, even though she never joined a meeting, and even though I outbounded her, because she immediately hooked me in with the right people and told me, okay, these are the people that need to join. So a strong champion can look like lots of things, and it can come from inbound or outbound. For me, that's how I would think about making that division as far as working on deals and deals that are worth my time.
Love that. Really cool. And for companies that are not that good at multi-threading, what are the common challenges that sales teams are facing and thinking, okay, this is hard, and why wouldn't they start doing it?
I think multi-threading is one of the top things that sales managers tell reps they should do, and reps agree, but no one tells them how to do it. Like, we have one person on this deal, you should be multi-threading. I agree. Now what? Like, how would you like me to do this, right? They don't give any specific, and I think that's because a lot of times sales leaders have been top reps themselves, and they think, because they don't have beginner's mind, they think, well, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
So they think that this other person who is a top performing rep or a good rep, well, they know how to do this. No, maybe they don't.
Yeah.
So I think that's the hardest thing, is knowing we should do it, but not knowing how. And the other thing is, we are sometimes afraid of stepping on someone's toes, right? Feeling like we're going around, we don't want to make them feel we are going around them. So again, that's why if we multi-thread before that first meeting, we can avoid some of that you've gone around me feeling, because we haven't even met yet, right? So that's part of it. And then the other thing, if we feel like that they may not be super thrilled about that, when we kick off that first meeting, we can say, hey, Laura, thank you so much for making time today. I'm glad we're getting to connect. I've actually been reaching out to many people in your organization for quite a while. Sally, your CRO, and Taylor, your CMO, and then also had sent a couple of messages to Tim in IT. But I'm glad we're getting to connect, and I'm very interested to hear your perspective today. So I've already, in doing that, I've told you a couple of things. I've said, I've already been reaching out to people. Therefore, the implication is I'm not going around you, because I've already been here before you. And also, when I say I'm excited to get your perspective, I've told you that you are one perspective that I'm getting, and I am excited to get it, but I am not setting you up to be my source of how to get to anyone in the organization. And when I naming the people that I've been reaching out to is very important, because it gives me some credibility. Like, I'm not just saying I've been doing it. I know their names, and I've been doing that. And it also then lowers some resistance, because I'm not going to be asking you to introduce me to those people, because I've already been messaging them. So it kind of lowers that defensiveness a little bit. And the other thing is, if we know one of the ways we can know that if they're going to be a champion is if you say to me, oh, great, if when we get to the end of the call, you sounds like you've already been reaching out to Sally. Let me get an introduction. Let me get you an introduction. Then you've offered it. I haven't put you in a place though to be the only person and the only way that I can get to Sally.
Yeah. Would you ever ask for that introduction if you're not offered?
Probably not in the first call. Again, because I like to tell them I've already been reaching out to them.
Yeah.
If they offer, that's fantastic. And that is a signal to me that they want to be a champion. They want to help get this done. And so I might ask, where I would ask is maybe in a second or third meeting where you say, okay, well now, because usually what happens is there's kind of a scouting party, right? There's a manager or director that goes to look at something and they're reporting back to a VP, or they're just deciding if they want to, report out to the VP about what's happened. And so after they look at it and say, okay, well, I think there's value for my team, for my end users, great, that's wonderful. What I have seen from working with my other customers, Laura, is that if your team loves it, that's wonderful, but you probably won't get very far in your organization if we are not aligned with an executive and an initiative that they care about. So, can you walk me through what are the KPIs that your executives are talking about, and where do you think we fit with that? And then if you don't know, that's a different story. But assuming that you do know and you say, oh, well, that's Sally, that's our CRO. And I say, okay, well, it probably would, generally what works best is now looping her in. And so, how would it be best to have I can have my executive team reach out to her? That's typically what we would do. Would that work the best for you? Or do you think just a direct introduction would work the best?
I love that. And how often would you keep the stakeholders informed in that multi-threading according to the hierarchies of the company you figured out?
Yeah, always and forever, including when it's in procurement. Now, if it's a very large, complex deal, and you've multi-threaded with end users and you've multi-threaded with champions, ideally, usually by the end, there are people that need to sign off on a deal and just be like, yes, that seems like it will work okay for us. And there are people that are champion or coaching you through the deal. And the people that are championing and coaching you always, forever, keep them in the loop. And here's why. So I just had an AE that I coached, and we were working on helping him close a deal for last quarter. Very large deal for him. It was in procurement. He's like, I talked to the procurement guy last night. He said we had covered off on everything he needed. And, there was no problem. He could sign it. He said, but he still didn't sign it last night. We went through all the terms, and he's like, now it's, 9:00 in the morning, end of quarter. He still hasn't signed it. He's like, I think maybe I'll wait till lunch and ping him again. It's like, you could do that. If it were me, procurement has nothing to lose, whether this gets signed at 9 a.m. today or tomorrow. And us reaching out and being like, just checking in. Did you see the DocuSign? That's annoying to them, right? And it doesn't really carry much weight. Versus I said, okay, who wants this deal to get done? Well, it turned out that there was a rep and her VP that they needed the data from his product to go and land a giant customer.
Yeah.
And that meeting was scheduled for August 24th. And I said, we need to reach out. I would suggest reaching out to the rep and the VP and be like, here's what's happening in procurement. Brad, lovely human in procurement, had a great conversation last night. Somehow I still don't have the signature, and walk them back. Sounds like your meeting is August 24th. We need 2 weeks to get you that data so that you can walk in there for your presentation. If you reach out and ping Brad, it's definitely going to mean more than if I do it. So just wanted to let you know kind of where we are, because part of reducing friction and making things easier for buyers is when things go to procurement or a different department, sometimes it's like a black hole. The left hand frequently doesn't know what the right hand is doing in a company. I bet you $20, they've never met Brad in procurement. They don't know who he is, right? So they don't know what's happening. Whereas then we become a key source of information, and we're helping them get what they want. And when they ping Brad, when they're lighting him up on Slack, and it's not me, it's, it's a VP of sales saying, Brad, can we just get a signature on this so we can get, that carries a lot more weight. So always and forever through procurement until you see close one. And really even after that, right? Because then you're helping them get set up with onboarding. You're helping them make sure they get value. So always.
Fantastic. And taking it back to sales and marketing alignment, you were at the big companies, Tableau and all the rest, and you have not been able to experience marketing helping you out with targeted ads as they are in user gems. And if I was an AE or a sales leader at one of those larger companies and I want this, I want sales and marketing to work together, where do we start? What is it that we can build together to at least take the small steps towards that type of alignment?
Yeah, it's a really smart question. I think in companies with a healthy culture, sales and marketing usually are trying to work together. And many times has been my experience at least, that these wonderful humans in marketing are like, tell us how to help you. Like we want to help you, right? And so if you're in a large organization with, a lot of sellers, you'll generally have like a field marketing partner who will help you put on field events. So that's another way. So multi-threading is not just emails and voicemails. If you're doing field sales, or you have a culture where you can travel some when in a later stage deal, that can be a huge thing for multi-threading, is having a field salesperson or a field marketing person put on an event where you and your executives can come and have a happy hour, or you take someone to a sporting event, or whatever it is, or, you set up a private offsite dinner at a conference that you both are going to. Like multi-threading can happen in person as well. But I would simply reach out to find out who is aligned in your sales leaders should know who in marketing is aligned to your team. And maybe this can be an initiative that you promote together, right? Because maybe joining together, maybe marketing's been trying to figure it out. I would just simply reach out and try to have a conversation and see who can help you. And if for whatever reason the person that's aligned to your team in marketing, they can't do it or don't know how to do it, or they're too busy, like, we're in sales, we reach out to other people. Reach out to somebody who's and again, like, newer leaders are more anxious to make their mark. Does your company have a new marketing director? Do they have a new marketing manager that would like to stand up in an executive meeting and be like, look at this shiny new thing that we are doing for sales, right? Like, again, what's in it for them? And how do we make it easy for them? How do we help them accomplish the goals they have in their career? We can all win.
Nice. How do you see multi-threading evolving? Because there are a lot of new tools, a lot of new ways, and a lot of noise as well. So how is it going to evolve?
Yes, there is a lot of noise. The thing that warm referrals and like warm conversations with, meaning reach people that already know them, reaching out, are some of the least noisy, like those that will cut through the noise, right? If I'm an executive and another executive I know says, hey, sounds like you're talking to user gems, we actually talked with them 6 months ago, we're getting onboarded, here's what we've seen, just heads up. That's huge, right? Like that cuts through. If it's a familiar person in their inbox, that's huge. The other thing is this is hard because the phone is like the most uncomfortable channel, but it's the least noisy channel. I mean, think about, I probably got 45 plus emails, texts, DMs yesterday, and I'm not an executive, right? They get 200 plus probably. How many voicemails did you get yesterday? Probably 1 to 3, right? So like that, I mean, it's uncomfortable. It's no fun to cold call someone. It's, everyone hates the sound of our own voice. We don't want to practice the voice message so that we sound tight and interesting, but like the phone is the least noisy channel. People have 200 emails and maybe 1 voicemail. Like the odds are pretty good there, or even just even a LinkedIn If they're on LinkedIn at all, like a LinkedIn voice note where they can't see what you're saying, but they're like, Laura sent me a 12-second message. Like, what is this? Like that sometimes many times I've had people say, I didn't even know you could do this on LinkedIn, right? Like it's interesting just because they've never seen it. So there's lots of ways to break the noise. Really, if you're chasing like a whale of a deal, some ways that I've both kicked off a deal or brought an executive in or like re-engage an executive that's been ghosting is I send them something in the mail. So I mean, we have to be creative because the inbox is a very, very noisy place these days.
I love that. Warm referrals, stand out with stuff that people feel uncomfortable of doing, send out direct mails, and then you will be able to stand out for multi-threading. I love that. That's so great. And remember all the time, marketing can definitely help. I think that's a very big learning of today as well. It's like, because we sellers, we know how to do it. Sometimes we know we have to do it. We don't know how to do it. But bringing in marketing, they probably will also have additional ideas like, what if we send them, I don't know, updates in a mail with a tiny gift or something like that? Nobody will say no to that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, the gift, and like again, that's harder to do if people are working from home. But there are solutions where you send them an email and they just provide the address, and so that the seller doesn't see it. Like, so, I mean, there's all sorts of ways to do it. We just have to figure out ways to be creative. And I see a lot on LinkedIn about like sending the perfect email, and we should pay attention to that, right? Like we should definitely pay attention to that. But we don't have to get stuck there, right? Like especially the best enterprise sellers I know. And so whether you sell enterprise now or you want to, the more creative, the better. Like, do something that people aren't doing. And you might have to pay for it with your own money. Lord knows I did. But like, if I spend $50 to send someone a Yeti and I land a $2 million deal, like, I'm okay with sending the $50 Yeti. Like, I don't need to be reimbursed. I'm good. Send me that commission check.
Exactly. Great. Krysten, I love the conversation. Look at that. So we've got Heather asking, you've got incredible content. Do you have multi-threading one-on-one guide or have something in the making? Because people want it.
Yeah, so I partner with Chris Orlob and P Club. I have a whole multi-threading course on P Club. And so people can do that. People can sign up and you can buy just that course, or your whole org can sign up and do it together. And they have a whole package. Because it's actually, Chris and his team have been kind enough to tell me it's the most popular course they have, other than the things that Chris does. Chris is a freaking genius. But I think it is really because there's been so little guidance from sales leaders on how to do it. There's like a lot of nagging that we should do it. And it's because it wins deals, right? But I also think something that most sellers don't think about, and this can really help our mindset when we go to do multi-threading. Like we get told by sales leaders, well, this helps, we win when we have more people involved. That's true. But go deeper and think about the why. Why would we win when we have more people involved? Here's why. Forbes and McKinsey say that 70% of change initiatives fail. So if I'm an executive and I'm going to stick my neck out and say, we should do this thing, it's pretty likely that like a lot of those things fail. And if I have to go to a CFO on my own and ask for budget and try to justify a spend, especially in this environment, what's more powerful, one VP going to a CFO or 4? Right. And so we as sellers, we're like, oh God, I don't want to step on their toes and I don't want to offend them or whatever. But if we are saying, hey, listen, Laura, it sounds like you really want this thing. It sounds like you believe the ROI is there for your team. I can tell you from my experience, what I see across my customers is when we have buy-in from marketing, when we have buy-in from RevOps, when we have buy-in from IT, that's a much easier journey for you. And I can give you some we can work together on messaging. I can tell you how this is going to benefit marketing. We can figure out how to bring them in, but it's probably going to be a lot easier for you. It sounds like Mary in marketing might be the person that would benefit the most. What do you think about bringing her in? Right. So when you start to think about, oh God, I'm going to have to stand up at an ELT meeting and justify why I'm asking for $70,000 or $700,000 or $7 million, it makes it a lot easier if I'm not the only one standing up with the PowerPoint. If I've got 3 other VPs saying, yes, our team wants this too.
Yeah.
Yes, our team has vetted this. So when we think about as a way that we can make our prospects' lives easier, that makes it easier for us to make the ask, because we don't feel like, oh, this is just for me because I've been told to do it. We are helping our prospect get what they want and get something that will help them, and it solves our thing, solves their problem. But multi-threading solves the problem of how do they get everything, right?
This is really impactful. And I even think back of one of my deals that I'm working on. That is like, you've got a champion, you've got people wanting it, but in those large organizations, more people have to want this for it to actually go through, because most of the large deals will fall through most probably for inaction or the CFO saying no because there's one person asking for something, even though the ROI is huge. No, I love this. This is great. Krysten, thank you so much for today. I'm very grateful that you joined our conversation, especially for the sales and marketing alignment. People, go talk to your marketing. They will be able to help you out as well, no matter the size of the deals that you're closing as well. And Krysten, if people want to find you, besides your content on Chris Orlop and that they can take it and learn about multi-threading, where else can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn and have a website, so just KrystenConner.com, but that's linked in my website. You can sign up I have a free newsletter, lots of free stuff. So yeah, I would love to talk to you.
Fantastic.